So most of us have a kind of learned helplessness, right? Where we really want to help the homeless person that we're walking past. We really actually don't feel good about our busyness to get to something that doesn't matter that much, having us walk past another human that's actually really hurting. And yet there's so many homeless people, and we could spend our whole life doing it that way and not really touch it. And that's just one tiny issue. And there's a learned helplessness where I don't feel like I can keep caring in the same way if I can't act on the care. It's too devastating. And so I start putting blinders on and I start numbing in a particular way because I can only care about stuff I can do stuff about. And it seems like I can do so both my impossibility to respond and my impossibility to even make sense of adequately. Well, my impossibility to respond will have me turn sense making off. Also, and care off. My inability to even make sense of things will have me turn care off. And so I'll tell you a little bit about kind of my process. I'm sharing some things that I've come to understand or how I see things as a result of a somewhat long curve of really trying to make sense of what the problems are in the world. But I started with much smaller definition of the problems, right? It was like it started for me that the problem was factory farms. And then it expanded to no, we actually do fucked up stuff to lots of animals. And then and it kept expanding in steps as I would work with it. But at each step, there was a devastation of both how horrific and how huge the problem was. And then based on that sense making and the care, and then there was an up leveling of, okay, well, what could I do to help this? And a kind of agency that would emerge. But then as I would work with the solution that emerged, I would realize it wasn't a real solution because the problem was actually deeper and bigger than I was thinking it was, and I was solving the wrong problem. So, okay, we're going to work and put the fences around the elephant preserve so the poachers can't get to them to protect the elephants. But given that even when we succeed at that, but we haven't addressed the poverty of the poachers who can't feed their kids any other way, and we haven't addressed a macroeconomy that creates poverty because of a power law distribution on wealth, and we haven't affected the mindset towards animals, and we haven't affected population dynamics and all those things. And so as a result, when we succeed at protecting the elephants because the fences go up, the poachers move to start hunting the white rhino that's more endangered and the mountain gorilla, right? This was an actual experience I had when I was 13 working with an activism project. And I'm like, wow, the best solution, because it didn't understand the problem well enough, actually made a worse problem. It moved the harm to a more sensitive area. So then understand a larger definition of the problem and then try to work on a solution there, and that would happen again. And so then that took me on a process to kind of the maximum abstraction of generator functions of all the things, right? But at each step, as there was a deeper understanding of the nature of the problems, there was a while before there was a up-leveling of a sense of agency. Now, if I'm going straight to the most abstract and general case, there aren't all those steps of the up-leveling of agency. And then there's going to be like, oh, fuck, I went from thinking about what I could do with a community garden to, how do we deal with the nature of how humans sense make technology differently and rivalrous dynamics writ large globally. And so something I can say is so part of my process, this may or may not be relevant for anybody, but part of my process was in facing the actual situation of the world was there were a few vows that I made when I was pretty young, actually, as a teenager. The first vow was that I would never turn away from the pain of the world. Like decide I'm not going to go to the factory farm when I have an opportunity, or avoid the poor area, or turn off the PETA video. That I wanted to actually see the world that I lived in and what was going on, because I didn't want to be able to live in a blind bubble, right? So that was the first vow. And then the second vow, of course, when you start to do that, it's fucking devastating. And so then the next vow was to feel all of it and not go numb. And then the next vow was to not, if not going numb, not getting stuck in anger and blame. And then the next vow was to also not get stuck in hopelessness or overwhelm. Those were all basically unacceptable choices. So the first one of I just won't look at the problems. I will live in a tiny bubble where I get to feel like I'm succeeding while there's massive suffering and torture happening is a kind of dissociation that makes me as if a sociopath, right? I'm stoked. There's huge pain in the world, but I don't have to care about it. So I'm like, all right, that doesn't work. And going numb, getting stuck in blame or getting overwhelmed doesn't work. So it's like the only fucking way through is to say, I'm going to feel it all. I'm going to recognize that the devastation, the anger, whatever is a result of love, which is if I didn't love the animals, if I didn't love the kids, if I didn't love the environment, if it wasn't beautiful to me, I wouldn't care that it was being harmed. But underneath underneath the fear, the anger, everything is a reality that is so beautiful that I love, which is why I care. So then I trace it back to the love and I feel that. And I also tune in not just to the tragedies that are happening and could happen, but also to the intrinsic beauty and meaningfulness of life. And then I say, okay, I have some agency. I don't have God's, omnipotence, but I have some agency. So what do I do with that agency in service of what I care about? And, every time I meet a nurse who actually really cares about the people that she's nursing and makes the pain of what they're experiencing when they go to the hospital less painful, has them feel cared about. Like I feel this kind of existential relief that she's doing that. Or he's doing that. And every time I find someone who is tending to street dogs in Tijuana or anything, even if it's not addressing the generator functions of X risk, like all those things matter. And for a lot of people, they will understand the big picture and they'll say, I'm glad some people are working on it. I care about all of it, but based on the sense making I currently have and based on what I know how to do, this is where I can actually add value. And the last thing I would want to do is have the nature of my communication say, because those actions aren't totally sufficient for everything, that you would feel less motivated to take them. Fuck no. I want people to feel deeply motivated to do the things that they actually can do that are expressions of their care. And some people will be oriented to the kind of abstractions to say, well, how would we build a new resource provisioning system, a new economics that removes perverse incentive? Or a new collective intelligence system that doesn't have some of the failings of our existing governance systems. And so the people who are called to abstractions and to systems like that, awesome. I want you to work on those things. But whatever it is that you're called to, there's a lot of things that actually need to happen. And just because something doesn't meet the sufficiency doesn't mean it's not necessary, right? There's a lot that's necessary. And so these vows for me, I'm sharing because they're ones that I hope other people take their own version of, which is, how do I stay connected to what I care about in the world? And how do I stay empowered in my relationship to what I care